Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The drama at Ferrari continues. Ricciardo Adami will no longer be Lewis Hamilton's race engineer at the Scuderia next season. He has been heavily demoted from a role that was so controversial this most recent season, and big developments over just these last few hours as to who the replacement is going to be. No, it's probably not going to be Bono from Mercedes, but another former Mercedes man could well be joining Hamilton. That may well be the key to his revival at the Scuderia this season. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new. As always, lots to get into before we get to this point. Just wanted to quickly say congrats to Alex and Lily. They're officially engaged as of yesterday. But let's talk about Cadillac, because Cadillac, they hit the track yesterday in Silverstone. It is interesting that we've had a Cadillac with a Ferrari power unit in hit the track before Ferrari themselves have done, but they will be on track in Fiorano, we think, in a few days' time. This is the video of the fire up, and I know that people were talking about this. I don't really like to share the audio from these videos, or I don't mind sharing it. It's just, I don't think it matters massively. Often the audio equipment has more of an impact on what it actually sounds like than what you'll see on the track. I will, however, share a video of what the Ferrari power unit does sound like in the back of the Cadillac, because I think that's probably more relevant and certainly more interesting than this video was. People were also trying to figure out, does the whole house look depressed? Right? I know people are looking at this video thinking, doesn't look like everyone is especially satisfied. I don't know, like, have a look at some of the body language. You guys can make your own perception of that. But anyway, they fire up the engine. The Ferrari power unit is ready to go for the upcoming season. Hamilton, Leclerc, among others, all there ready to go. But, you know, it's not exactly the cheers and the excitement that we have seen from other teams, but also it's expected Ferrari will be competitive. Teams like Audi, teams like Cadillac firing up their engines for the first time, although, of course, in Cadillac's case, it is just a Ferrari engine regardless. They're going to be more excited about it because it's the first time they're doing it for real. It's been fired up though. Ferrari have an engine. It works. It does also work in the back of another car. So this is the clip I will share, because the audio of this is very interesting, distinctly different to other power units we have heard for some time. Some say this sounds not terrible, but maybe concerning on some level. It doesn't maybe sound how it should. And also the other problem here really was that this is the Cadillac. We'll have a look at some of the details on it in a second. But it comes out of the garage late yesterday afternoon in Silverstone, whereas they were apparently planning to do their laps in the morning. So they were delayed in the garage for several hours while they worked on something. Of course, we don't know what. People think it could be power unit related. Whatever it is, this is what it sounds like.
Guys, I'm extremely proud of all of you. This is a very special moment for Cadillac F1 team. Let's make history together. Thank you, guys.
The first thing I'll say on these 2026 cars, they look fantastic. As Formula 1 cars go, this is a great design. I think the front wings, the way the car's been put together, if it was just a little smaller, right? I mean, look how comically massive the rear wheels look, like thickness-wise anyway in this image, because they've thinned down the wheels, but the fronts are kind of noticeably smaller now. They do still need thick tyres at the rear, because the amount of torque these cars have with the 50% electrical is out of control. So, yeah, they need the way to get the power down through the rear anyway. But the cars, I think, do look great. As I say, if they were smaller, lighter, somewhat more nimble, it would still be better. But I definitely think it's a move in the right direction. We have had far uglier car designs in regulations prior. I think that is a positive. This is the look of the Cadillac. I will say we could go into details on the front floor edge. We don't have enough pixels to really do some analysis. What we can see clearly is the side pod. It's much more of a Racing Bull's side pod than it is a Red Bull side pod based on what we talked about yesterday. And it looks like Audi have actually gone the other way. Again, it's a black car, black livery. There's not too much that can be said. I can only share some images. This, I think, is one angle where the cars do look particularly good. Again, we can see very clearly here the downsloping of that side pod towards the rear, much more similar to what Racing Bulls are doing, whereas Red Bull have a side pod which finishes far higher, but it has more of an undercut. I think we can even see at the front wing there's a little bit more of additional elements there than we saw on, let's say, the V-carb. it looks like that front piece of the floor is maybe more simplified than on other versions we have seen of cars so far. Look, Cadillac, they've not got the biggest team. They are considered to be the underdogs, as in they should be at the back of the grid at the start, at least, of the upcoming season. We'll see if that comes to reality, but yeah, I imagine other teams will be far more aerodynamically advanced. This, I will say, was an absolutely fantastic shot of what these cars are going to look like. So that's probably, if you turned up, cranked up the saturation and cranked up the brightness and the exposure, probably the best look so far at some of these 2026 F1 cars. But we will see some more contenders in the coming days. This another angle that Cadillac gave us. This was Sergio Perez in the car, and of course he had a few words to say for the team as well. This just is that side-by-side comparison. I mean, you can't see much difference apart from the side pods, really. You can see how the Cadillac side pod goes down very low, as I mentioned. The Audi side pod finishes far higher. That's more of a slightly more Red Bull, what we saw them do. But again, as we discussed yesterday, will Red Bull actually approach it in that way? Will they have other ideas? These side pods, by the way, are quite large in terms of inlets, generally speaking. There's a question right now on how much cooling these cars will need. The combustion engine is less powerful than it used to be. The electrical motor is more efficient from a heating and cooling perspective. So you might not expect cooling to be as much of an issue, but certainly for now, we're seeing quite wide, heavy intakes for the side pods. We definitely saw teams try and slim that down in the final year of the regulations from 22 to 25. Mercedes tried it in year one, but that wasn't also ideal. But there have been talk about the fire-up, right? Did it go to plan? They had some issues, right? Again, what were the issues? Who knows? It's not a surprise. It's not a massive point of concern. At the end of the day, a Ferrari-powered car did hit the track and do some laps, so the engine at least worked in that sense, but it feels like Audi had an easier time of things with their car, their fire-up, their power units. They got some laps in without too much difficulty. Cadillac waited several hours, it seems, to get everything resolved. We will see plenty of issues such as that at the first couple of tests, I am sure of it, and this is another example. So not too much to say about that necessarily. The next reveal is on the 19th. Haas will show us their car. Again, we don't know so much. Will it just be a livery? Will we see an actual car with some development on it, as Red Bull and Racing Bulls did show us? As we discussed yesterday, some questions on how real those cars really were. Were they just showing us ideas that have since been rejected and will not be on the real thing? Those are questions that are currently kind of challenging to answer. But Haas will be out in a couple of days. Again, they've got a Ferrari power unit in the back of that thing. The other teams mostly will confirm their cars before we go to Barcelona for the first test. Then a few teams waiting until February. Now, Alpine, theirs is on the 23rd of January alongside Ferrari as it stands. The big development today on Alpine is the weight. So the other day we talked about that it looks like Sauber, now Audi, have done it again in 2022. Notably, they had a car that was right at the weight limit. That gave them an early advantage. Reportedly, Alpine are in the same boat. Donadoni talks about it here in the article. And, I'll leave the entire thing linked down below. It effectively says there are two teams in this conversation right now. We think Audi is one of them, and Alpine, it appears, are the other, that have got down to the minimum weight limit. And this is very interesting because Aston Martin, we heard rumours that they are roughly 15 kilograms over the weight limit. That is probably 4/10 at least a lap, if not 5 or 6, I would say. In the previous era, we talked about 10 kilograms being roughly 3/10, but these cars have lower downforce, so it's likely to be a smidge more than that for every 10 kilograms over. But there's a 678 kilogram limit. Alpine are apparently already there. Now, this is very impressive, I think, first of all. Look, Alpine have made respectable chassis in recent seasons. Their engine has let them down, for sure. Now they're going to be Mercedes-powered. They're at the weight limit, apparently. Audi were not expecting their engine to be as good. So this is the question about the Mercedes-powered teams. We are going to see, I'm convinced, huge performance differentials over the course of this 2026 season. Maybe Alpine could be one. Could they start very well and try and hold on? Who knows? But even if their car is nowhere near as good as the Aston Martin, which is possible, they might need to be, Aston, half a second quicker on aero and engine than Alpine to be as fast, if they are, at least initially, 15 kilograms of weight behind. So this is a big advantage, right? It genuinely could be a huge early advantage for some of these teams in terms of scoring early points, because Williams, where are they going to be? Good question. There's 4 Mercedes-powered teams. Merc, McLaren, of course, the 2 big favourites, and then Williams and Alpine. The Williams and Alpine battle has been a key talking point, right? If Mercedes have the best power unit, who's going to be the third best of those four? You would expect Mercedes and McLaren number 1, number 2, in some order or another. But genuinely, who knows? Could Alpine be a threat at the start of the season? Because Audi, when we talked about them being at the minimum weight limit, again, it's impressive they've got there already. I will say, if there's 2 teams that have got there already, it's obviously a challenge, but it's clearly not an unsurmountable challenge, right? It may be Aston a 15 kg over, 10, 15 kg over. It's possible other teams are 5, 10 kg. It doesn't seem like it can be that hard to get down to this limit if we've already got 2 teams out of 11 that are there or effectively already. So it probably means that the teams that are behind, they're not going to be tense, they're not going to be a second a lap behind just on weight, you would imagine, right? So there's going to be a possibility to catch this up relatively quickly, but it will be an advantage early on. Obviously, if your car is lighter, it's better, unless the car is lighter because you've made the gearbox lighter or you've made some other components lighter that might have mechanical problems, right? So that's the other issue, that if you could be running the risk of reliability if you make certain elements of the car substantially lighter. But let's talk about what is going on at Ferrari. First of all, we saw rumours the other day from De Keyser that there will be a pleasant surprise on the 2026 car. This, of course, just a mock-up. We don't know what it's going to look like. That, it seems, is to do with the HP logo. There has been talk that the HP logo on the new Ferrari car will be in black or white. It won't have the blue, certainly not to the same extent. All I would like to see is a rear wing like this. The HP on the Ferrari rear wing is horrible. On the back of the car, it's bad. I don't like it on the rear wing. I think the rear wing has to say Ferrari or just not have the HP logos dotted on it. It looked horrific. So as long as that's gone, I'll be reasonably happy. It will, however, apparently have a slightly lighter shade of red with some white accents on still. There's also a mandate this year that 55% of the body must be painted. There's not previously been a number associated with that, so teams have kind of done what they wanted. Now it's 55%. I imagine many of the teams will say, we will use exactly 55%. They could use more, of course, but when weight is a problem, that is probably the number that they will go for. So we will see if Ferrari and the other teams give us too much more than that. But the big development of yesterday and coming into today with some of the other updates that we are about to discuss is Ricciardo Adami. The relationship between Adami and Hamilton, well, in public they would say, oh, it's fine, but we knew things weren't great there. The amount of miscommunication and just it felt like they weren't on the same page a lot of the time. We even saw it at the end of the season. Hamilton wants a certain thing from his engineer. Adami didn't seem to give it to him. We know that the engineers at Ferrari have always been questionable. Hamilton's relationship with Bono was very strong and for good reason for a very long time. With Adami, it was honestly a catalogue of errors on many occasions. It was really capped off with Abu Dhabi, the final Grand Prix, when Hamilton had a great comeback drive and Adami was telling him things that he didn't know or didn't want to know or didn't care about. And Hamilton was, Adami were telling him, oh, you're racing this guy. It's like, yeah, I know I'm racing this guy. Like, what do you think I'm here for, right? Like, don't tell me that. I want to know important things like, okay, what's the gap, this, that, and the other? What's the update on strategy? What could we potentially do? Felt like Hamilton wasn't getting the communication that he wanted. And at the end of the race, when Hamilton said, thanks guys, tough season, we'll come back stronger, Adami didn't even respond and said, oh, sorry, mate, I was talking to the team. It's like, well, come on, the final 8 race of the season's just ended. Surely it might have been a nice time to say something to the driver for all the commitment, to say the very least, despite a challenging season. So look, was this the only reason why Hamilton and Ferrari did not go to plan last season? No. But it was clearly one of the reasons why things on track were not ideal. And Adami's qualities as a race engineer have been questioned for a long time. His work with Sebastian Vettel, races like Barcelona, were often questionable as well. So I think it was pretty inevitable that if Ferrari were going to listen to Hamilton, I think that Hamilton likely did not want this relationship to continue. It didn't feel like they were a good fit for one another as a driver-engineer combination. And what are you going to do? Keep Adami and get rid of Hamilton? Probably not, right? This is interesting, though, that they're doing this because we understand that Hamilton was told kind of by John Alcan, shut up and drive type thing, right? do less talking, questions on whether Ferrari would say, oh, well, we're paying Hamilton all this money, but we're not really going to listen to him, and we're just going to hope that things work for the better, and we're going to stick to the process and all this. Clearly, Hamilton has a number of things that he would like to change in the team. This, it seems, is one of them, and at least it seems on this topic, Ferrari are listening, and they're saying, okay, we are going to take some decisive action. Hamilton also himself clearly wanting to take some decisive action and to say that was not working last season. We need to find a better way to ensure this communication is better. And of course, it goes beyond just what's happening on the track. That is the crux of the relationship between Ferrari and Hamilton, right? Like, his race engineer is his first point of contact in all occasions. We saw David Coulthard the other day say that relationship is everything to a driver, and you need to believe that your race engineer is on your side at all times. So if Hamilton doesn't have a good relationship there, it means that everything with his relationship with the team is not going to be as strong as it could be. Now, can he bring in Peter Bonington, Bono from Mercedes? No, there's a gardening leave period there. Bono's working with Antonelli. That ain't going to happen. But Ferrari say Ricciardo Adami has been demoted. Okay, they don't say that. They say he's been moved into a new role with the Ferrari Driver Academy and the TPC program, the Testing Previous Cars program. Quite the demotion. He's not been fired precisely, but he has been demoted quite heavily to work with the rookies and and basically the testing of the previous cars. It's he's not going to be in the garage anymore. I think that's the point, really, is that it's not like, okay, we're going to give someone else the job, but Adami will still be there. Like, it doesn't really appear that will be the case. Adami will be nowhere near Lewis Hamilton next season. That's at least how it appears. That may not be true, but it does look like they wanted that relationship to be severed and fast. The appointment of the new race engineer for car number 44 will be announced in due course. So this was celebrated by many. I saw Hamilton fans there finally free from Adami. There have been lots of questions on Adami's conduct on the radio last season, and I think this is going to be a positive for Hamilton and that dynamic, especially if he gets someone who he has a stronger relationship with. And that's where the questions kind of became, okay, sure, get rid of Adami, but who are you going to replace him with, right? You're going to bring back, Xavi, whatever his name was, Xavi Marcos, that's it, who was Leclerc's former race engineer before they brought in Brian Bozzi. That was the original We Are Checking man. Probably not. So that's the question. Who are they going to get? Now, there have been some development on who that man is going to be. As I say, it's probably not going to be Peter Bonington. This is not a real graphic before you get concerned. There has been talk about this man, Luca Diella. So, Diella used to work with Hamilton at Mercedes for some time. Now, he was, for the most recent season, Hamilton's performance engineer. Again, there's a few different roles in play, but one of the key roles in Hamilton's aides, as it were, was Diella. And Hamilton spoke pretty highly of him, believed he was a pretty important part of getting some success out of Hamilton and of the car. Now, he joined Hamilton's garage from Silverstone, and since then it seems like they had a pretty good relationship. This actually is there he is in the foreground here, right? So this is Luca Diella. You don't often see him in the news or anything, but this is Diella, that's Hamilton there in the background as far as I'm aware. So it's very interesting to see this, because as you see, if you look at Luca Diella's LinkedIn, he was working at Mercedes as the trackside performance engineer for car number 44 for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes between 2021 and 2025. And then in 2025, he follows Hamilton over to Ferrari to become the race engineer, test team, and then race performance engineer. He worked with Hamilton, as we understand, from Silverstone and beyond. So he's been a critical piece of Hamilton's runway with Mercedes. Now he joins Ferrari as well. And yeah, just interesting, because there was even some speculation at the end of last year that as and when Ricciardo Adami is gone, which felt quite inevitable, that this man might get the job. So, look, Luca Diella, it seems, is currently pole position. He's the pole position man to secure that role. It seems like, they're pursuing all options and all this stuff as to that duo. I think they actually said that a while ago, yeah. So Fred Vasseur a few weeks ago said that they're looking at all options when it comes to the future of Adami. It's now been confirmed that he will be ousted, and his career definitely mirrors the Brian Bozzi relationship that we have just discussed. So that feels quite likely right now, that it will be Luca Diella as the new race engineer for Lewis Hamilton for the upcoming season. Time will tell if that proves to be any better than what we saw the most recent year. But intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Just one final thing to mention on Max Verstappen. This, I think, is Max Verstappen in the AMG Mercedes doing some testing recently in the GT3 program. Now, there's a rumour, this is kind of remarkable that Verstappen has this much pull, but it's understandable, to be honest. Now, the NLS season at the Nordschleife is getting underway, but obviously there's 24 races on the calendar, there's lots of clashes with Formula 1, and as a result, Verstappen wants to drive it, but he won't be able to if things clash. So, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz and Toto Wolff, so this is very interesting when it comes to that potential Toto-Max relationship in the future, advocating for it to be postponed, the season opener to be postponed, so that Max can do it effectively with Mercedes, because that would be big for Mercedes, it'd be big for Max, but currently that is not possible, and it looks like Toto is of a very keen mind, so to make this happen. So there's obviously a clash with the qualifiers. Max would need some prep time if he wants to do the 24 hours. Looks like Max really wants to make that happen, and it's interesting that it's not Red Bull trying to help him make that happen. It's Mercedes trying to help him get that to happen, right? So Mercedes and Toto trying to do Max a nice favour here to give him the support that he wants and needs. And, well, we shall see if that ends with Max Verstappen in a rather different jersey over the next couple of years. But very much interested in your thoughts and comments. Thanks for watching as always. Thanks for all the support on Spotify and the new followers in recent days as well. Follow if you haven't already. Appreciate all that. Thanks for watching. Take care. And I'll see you next time.